Hey, thanks for joining me today. I'm so glad that you could join me. This is early December 2024. It's a little bit nippy here in the southeastern US, but up there in the north, wow, it is just bitter cold. About 2 feet of snow up there in northeast Ohio, going all the way up to Buffalo at this point. So I'm glad we got some sun. It's dry here and cold, but I'm not going to really complain too much about that because most of the year, and I always remember, it is hot and humid. I say it here all the time. So I'm really grateful that we're doing fine here at the moment. So I kind of wonder if we're going to have another snowmageddon here in the ATL or here even throughout the Southeast. Who knows? Just this Alberta clipper coming all the way down out of Canada. It doesn't reach us very much, so this is really unusual, and it could always hit us with some snow one day. We shall see. So we might be looking back on this and saying, "Wow, you know what? You called it. There's some snow in the ATL, but who knows? It's been a long time since we had any snow here." But I'm glad you joined me today. It's a little bit different. I am recording this a little bit differently, as you have noticed. Just this is off the cuff, and I just wanted to get this episode out because this is really important that I get you to know Lynn. She's an amazing author. I met her online through this site called Alignable, and I met some really interesting people. There are a lot of writers there, and she's a great writer. She was once a detective here in a county called DeKalb. It has an L in it, yes, and up in Illinois they call it DeKalb. Down here it's DeKalb County, USA in Georgia, and she worked there for quite some time and really wanted to change in life and started to write short stories and then eventually into books, and she still does both, and it's just really amazing, and she's incredibly creative. And I just wanted to get this out and get everybody to see what's going on with a wonderful writing scene, not just here in the southeastern US, but everywhere. And it's just very encouraging to see people who are just striking it out on their own, and maybe even some are self-publishing. Lynn has a great editor who goes over everything, and we ask about that. I asked her about that progress, about how she does that, and just really cool. I really, again, another, you're an artist when you're a writer, and to me, you're kind of a magician. So I'm always curious as to what the process is and what goes into it, and life experiences happens so you can end up becoming just an amazing writer like Lynn. So I hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you on the other side of this. We have a really great talk, and I really enjoyed speaking with her. It's great to see you. What a
Thank
wonderful,
you.
beautiful morning this is.
It is a wonderful morning.
Finally here. Now you're in the Atlanta metro area?
Yes, I live in Stone Mountain, which is, the Redan area.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. That's nice. You're not too far from me. I'm in Peachtree Corners, have been for many decades now. And I love it. Yeah, and I love this time of the year here in late November. It's just
Yeah.
beautiful finally.
Yeah, we we had a little mishap where somebody crashed their car in the side of our one of our side walls. So it's a little drafty because
Oh
it's
my
cool at
gosh.
night, but we've got people coming out today, so hopefully it'll get fixed soon.
Okay, so it's not too bad. I mean, you don't have any
Well,
like obvious.
pretty much caved in that side of the house.
Ah.
My husband wasn't hurt. His office was on the other side before they hit. So we have to count our blessings.
Oh my gosh, how does that happen? Are you close to a road? How does that
Well,
even?
apparently she was a cul-de-sac sort of goes up, and she was two or three houses up on the other side, and she was there. She was a nurse, and she was there talking to somebody, and apparently she must have left her car in neutral and stepped out to talk to
Oh.
the client, and it starts
Oh.
rolling, and she tumbles to get out of the way because the door's open. And it does this kind of number, down the hill, and it doesn't hit the tree and it doesn't hit the air conditioning unit, but it just hits that wall real good. So, but
Oh
she
my
wasn't hurt.
gosh.
She had minor cuts and stuff, and my husband wasn't hurt, so I was okay.
That's good. Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
thank God, no. I mean, it's wild. That's really wild. So, like, who puts their car in neutral unless you're having it pushed or something like
Well,
that?
you know,
Or didn't notice that she did it.
I have a law enforcement background, and so I have worked a
Yeah,
few of those calls actually.
yeah, yeah,
It's totally different when it happens to you, right?
yeah, yeah. That's strange. So, law enforcement. What did you do in law enforcement all those years?
Well, I did a lot of, I was on the street a lot. I was a detective for 3 years, and I left with the rank of lieutenant. I was one of the first women who actually rode in patrol car and answered calls in DeKalb County. So,
In DeKalb County. So,
yeah,
big
from
county.
1980, yeah.
1980. A
Uh-huh.
huge county, but not as many people back then, obviously. This place has just exploded over the
It
years.
has, it has. But, it was actually going on during my time that I was there. By the time we reached the 90s, it was just
Sure.
crazy the amount of people that came here. And of course, they have pretty much the same amount of police officers then as they do now. I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't know how they handle anything.
Yeah, yeah. If you're not going to increase those numbers, you have more of the citizens and fewer law enforcement. So
Mhm.
yeah, you got to entice them with bigger paychecks, and that's tough.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. We used to have a really good retirement system, et cetera. But
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about their training now. I feel like they need to get better training.
Yeah, and very important. And in Atlanta, Fulton County, Atlanta, they are talking about that huge training facility, which seems like completely state of the art. Yeah, there's been just like all this protest over there it's been kind of national too. People have been following that. So those who
Yeah.
are not from the metro area.
Yeah,
Uh,
my husband is a photojournalist and he
oh,
does all the work for Decatur, so he covered a lot of that story for Cop City. So yeah, I'm quite aware of all the controversy over that. Mm.
yeah, yeah. Is he an independent, a freelancer, or is he actually
He
contracted?
is, he is, but he does most of his work for them, but he does a whole bunch of other stuff too, and he's won a bunch of awards. I'm real proud of him.
Excellent. Yeah, I've been in video production too. I've been for 30 some years now. Yeah, I enjoy that. That's my day gig. So I do mainly video editing, producing, and I could do some shooting too. And I love it. I love television
Yeah,
production and film
yeah.
production.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
started doing some drone shots in the last few years, and
Yes.
that's been an interesting, sideline.
Drones are funny because I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, I'd love to learn how to pilot those things, but I'm so afraid I'm gonna crash it and take somebody's head off with that thing. It's cool.
Well, you have to take a course, and
Yeah,
it's quite difficult. I mean, he
I imagine.
studied for about 6 months before he took it, and you have to get a license. You have to know the weather and the wind and the clouds, and I mean,
Hmm.
all things. But anyway, he's had fun with it. I think he's done a few things that you just can't get other. He used it for Cop City actually.
Yeah, the
Drone.
drone technology is just amazing. I love working with those kind of shots. It's just, it gets into nooks and crannies that you never could even think possible.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you did law enforcement and then after all that time, getting into writing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I always danced. I was a sacred dance teacher for over 20 years. And so I was always dancing and doing things like that, along with, along with the going to school and getting a degree and raising two children and all that kind of stuff. So
That had to be really busy, I'm sure. And then your
it
kids were probably
was.
busy as well.
He was a fire person for about the same time that I was a police officer. So he was working 24-hour shifts. I was
Mm.
working like rotating shifts with days off that changed every 90 days. So we had a wild life trying to raise those children, but I don't think they're, too jaded. I think they made
Yeah, I know. Kids are like, "Oh, why didn't we have dinner every night together? You know, you had neglected me, blah, blah, blah." It's like nothing we could do about the past. You just gotta move on. That's
Yeah,
the way it
I think
goes.
they were more like their friends would say things, I'm sure. My daughter was so embarrassed because I was behind her. I was still in uniform. I was coming home from work and I was behind their school bus. She was in high school. And there was some kind of commotion on the bus, and the bus driver pulled over. And so I
Yeah.
got out to check on the bus driver. And she was mortified that I had come up there,
Oh
with
my,
her
of
in the bar.
course. Oh my God, you're embarrassing me.
Yeah, yeah. She wasn't concerned about the fight on the bus. She just wanted me not to be there,
Yeah, I could see that feeling. Yeah, I could feel that. So this must have given you tons of ideas in getting into novel writing. I mean, plethora of
Yeah,
material.
absolutely. I had always journaled, and
Good.
towards the end of my career, I knew I was getting burnt out, and I very rarely took a vacation, but I took a vacation, went to Mobile, Alabama for a Mardi Gras, and my husband and I. And we were walking down Dolphin Street, and there's a bunch of billiard parlors, or at least there was then, and they were all really busy except this one. So I was really curious, and I peeked in the window, and there was these older white guys. They were sitting around a U-shaped bar with the older billiard parlors, to type tables and stuff. And boy, did they give me a look.
Mm.
They did
Oh
not
my
want me
gosh.
coming in there. And I was like, hmm. So I knew I had, done some training on the militia groups because, when you stop somebody that's from a militia group, they don't recognize the government
Yes. I
agencies. So they don't give you any idea or anything like that. So I was familiar with the militia group to some extent. So anyway, my imagination started working, and I said, that could be the KKK,
yeah.
guys that are left over from the KKK. So anyway, the first chapter came out before I ever left Mobile on Well of Rage, my first novel. So that's kind of how that came to be. And then by the time I got back, uh, I had there was some. You hear everything as a police officer, a female police officer. Here's a lot of crude things about women.
Oh yes, I'm sure in that
Okay,
culture.
and
Yeah.
I thought I'd heard it all, right? But
Right.
but I found out that there was a woman who had been married for about 10 years. She'd been divorced 10 years from this guy. And she'd done everything right. She had never gone back to him. She'd taken out a a temporary protective order. She
Hmm.
never dropped it. She did followed the rules. And he had kidnapped her and was raping her.
Oh my gosh.
And this did not happen on my watch, but the one of the young guys that was on SWAT was talking to me at the pumps about how it bothered him that they had told SWAT to stand down when they found out she'd been married to this guy. And the report was that nothing was happening to her that hadn't happened to her 1,000 times while she was married.
Mm. Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
so why that was the thing that did it for me, I don't know, because like I said, I'd heard it all. But I went in to be briefed by my captain after I had talked to this guy at the pumps, and he said the same thing.
Yeah, gosh.
And I remember thinking, if I don't leave, I'm going to totally lose it and tell everybody what I really think about
Yeah,
them.
that's
So I
wild.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. So then I went on vacation, and I just decided, hey, it's time. I want to dance more. I want to write more, and life is short. And I was, 52-ish. So it was time.
It is, it does kind of hit you around that age. It's like you put your time in, you paid your dues. It's like, yeah, you get over that certain point. It's like, not even so much that you're not old. It's like, it's not like I'm too old for this. It's just that you just come to that point where it's like you served your time and you come to that realization. So, yeah, so Well of Rage was very much inspired and you got into doing that.
Yeah. And of course, you have to learn to write. It is a skill. And so I started going to, critique groups and joined the Atlanta writers and so forth, and I think I must have written, I don't know how many drafts, but one of the things that was happening that I wasn't quite aware of until later on was that I was dealing with PTSD.
Sure. Sure.
And and so to be able to have a perspective to actually write an entertaining book that wasn't, uh, you know, my garbage out about how I felt about all the sexism, racism, etc. I had to gain a perspective
Yeah,
to
yeah.
write a novel that had some of those sub things in it, but that wasn't that wasn't the novel. So, because we're writing fiction, we're writing it, people want to be entertained as well as learn a little bit along the way. So, the first book, my character is female Ricky Cobb and Carly, and so and then I have a second book in the series where she's a little bit older and she's trying to make sergeant then. So yeah, it's a fun, and I get to do whatever I want. I'm a multi-genre uh, author, so I have those two crime novels, and then I have a suspense, and I have a traditional mystery that I wrote after the crime novels. It's a little bit lighter. It's got a lot of humor in it, and I did that deliberately because I needed that. The
Yeah,
crime
and just
were
just break
heavy.
away. Yeah.
And I set it in small town in Forsyth where my people have lived. I've
Precise.
never lived there, but they've lived there a long time. And I'm from a small town, originally in Missouri. So I know all about small town secrets.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And
Yeah, you feel like, oh, this is just the thing in movies, TV, but like you've
oh
seen it and
no, oh
experienced
no,
it.
there's a whole,
Yeah.
cultural thing in small towns. And so, and of course, I knew Forsyth intimately. I'm talking about the city, not the county.
It's south of here, Forsyth, Georgia.
Yes, yes, near Barnesville, about 30 minutes from Macon. And so I was really familiar with all the locations. And I got to use the tattoo parlor and the barbecue joint, in my book. So, and one of the funny things that happened about that was, I guess there had been a Pick and Pay convenience store at
I
some
haven't seen that
point
in ages, a pick and pay.
on the other side of town, from
Yeah.
my parents. And if I ever saw it, it wasn't conscious. Well, anyway, there's a Pick and Pay in the book. And so after the novel came out, my sister said, well, there was a Pick and Pay. But I said, no, I don't remember that at all. But and had started the book. I started that novel. It's called Another Kind of Hero. And I started it. I got about the third way through the rough draft. And I woke up with this character almost fully formed in my head of a ghost. And I had no
Interesting.
intention of putting a ghost in there at all,
Oh,
making it paranormal kind of mystery. But anyway, I write every day. By then I developed to write in the morning, all that kind of thing. And then I keep a running outline because I'm what they call a pantser, not a plotter. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And so uh, for about 2 weeks, I just wasn't getting anywhere. I was like, okay, all right, Wanda. Her name's Wanda.
Yeah.
I said, okay, Wanda, you're in the book. so,
Oh,
so,
cool.
so I went back,
Yeah.
and she's kind of a narrator, helps the two sister sleuths, uh, solve the big crime that's happening in Forsyth. And there's an undercover agent in the book that's a lot of fun because my mother, very religious woman, went to a small Methodist church down off Floyd Road. And she was probably at Bible study. I don't know, it was a Wednesday
Yeah.
night, kind of thing in the summer. So the door was open to the church. We're talking very small, probably 50 members. And a guy parks his motorcycle and comes in full leather gear with a ponytail and says, I just wanted to know if, we would be welcomed. I have a black girlfriend, a truck driver, and we're thinking about buying some property. And I just felt the presence of the Lord as I'm driving by this church.
Character.
So he comes in, he starts talking to the minister. My mother's got Parkinson's. She's tired. She wants to go home. So our friend drives her home. Well, and my mother's a very gutsy woman. Okay. She says, well, that man could be killing the minister right now. We don't know this man, you know.
Right.
And so Julie, who was driving her home, who was in her 70s then, anyway, she said, well, I'm going to go back and check on him. I'll drop you off and I'll go back and check on him. So there's this church and there's this old post office built in the 1800s, on this little kind of dirt road that comes between Floyd Road, a 2-lane paved road. And she parks her car here. She thinks she's being real sneaky so she can see in and, see the motorcycle. Well, the motorcycle guy comes out, gets on and just lights her up. Well, come to find out, he was a Rhodes Scholar in religions.
Oh my gosh. Very good.
So anyway, that's the story, their description of this guy. So this is what, of course, became my undercover cop.
Yeah. Where do you come up with the names like DEA agent Dewey Blackmon? I mean, how do you come up with character names? Is it like kind of based on people you know in your life, or you just kind of do a little research to say, hey, that kind of name would be happening in a place like Forsyth, Georgia?
I don't know where Dewey's name came from. Of course, I live outside of Stone Mountain, and so I knew about Shermantown.
Yeah.
And I got to interview a woman who had lived there forever and ever, and her people had lived there. And I think her father had actually built their house there. But anyway, very wonderful woman. She gave me a great interview, and I wanted to have the girlfriend living in Shermantown so that I could bring that in. And so I have no idea where that name come from, or sometimes I do deliberately use names. Like I have a person that comes to most of my book signings, and her first name is Elizabeth. And so I have put a character. I just finished the rough draft of a historical fantasy novella, and she's just been so sweet and so supportive. And so I told her, I'm going to put your name in the book. Is that okay? And she was going, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I'm going to make sure that it'll be okay with her, because I did that one other time with somebody who won a raffle at one of my book launches, but the character was killed off. And he didn't like that. He was very upset at me. So I need to make sure it's okay, whatever the character.
Yeah. Tell them what's going to happen with that character. Yeah.
Is that okay? Because I can change her name before it goes into print.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you do your writing these days, how much do you block out a certain amount of time, or just write whenever it hits you? How disciplined are you with that?
Okay, well, I really try to get up, get my coffee. Bless my husband, he likes to bring it to me, and I'm like,
That's
so
nice.
I have my little decaf coffee, which it's a ritual,
Yeah,
I have my
absolutely.
decaf coffee. I write for a couple of hours. Sometimes I go back and do other things, but on the book later on. I usually have 2 projects going on at the same time. Um, I don't know why that is. It just seems like that if I get here and I can't write on that story, I'll write on something else for that day. When you're in between novels, or when you're doing a lot of heavy editing, it's kind of hard to keep that schedule for me. Because it takes so much time to do proofing and to do the marketing and the setup for the launch and all that. And sometimes that drops by the wayside, and I have to do things at different times of the day. But that's usually I'll get up, I'll do my writing, and then I'll have kind of brunch.
Yeah.
And like I said, I might go back and do some more. It depends on, a lot of times it depends on, like, if the editor that I'm working with, the professional editor, needs the manuscript at a certain date, then you have to get it out. You have to get it out. But I'm not a fast writer, and I like to go over it. The next morning, like whatever I wrote this, I write in scenes, go over the scene. I go back the next day. I'll read it again, tweak it a little bit, and then go on, write the next thing. So that's kind of how I do it. And every once in a while, there'll be, a little snippet of dialogue at the Waffle House, or somebody will say something over here, and I go, some character needs to say that.
Yeah. So you get the ideas right there, like Waffle House. Do
Oh
you
yeah.
immediately put that in your notes, like either handwriting or
Yeah,
in the phone?
yeah, and I do a lot of those things go into short stories. I've tried to do a few short stories and have gotten a few published here and there. And a lot of that will go into short stories. I have one that I'm trying to get published that I think is kind of the best I've written yet on short stories. It's called Sorrow Road. And I go the back way from my house to my sister's house in Forsyth most of the time because 75 is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And there is a side road, which I had never noticed. For some reason that day, I noticed it was called Sorrow Road, close to McDonough.
Interesting. Yeah.
I
Okay.
said, okay, who would live on a road called Sorrow Road? My imagination just started going.
Yeah.
And my father, I come from blue collar people, and my father had, was like taking care of himself at 12 years old, that kind of thing. And he had a milk route when, he was too young to be driving.
Deliver. Yeah.
He really shouldn't. But anyway, I guess I didn't care back then. And so uh, his story and then my story growing up in the 50s, it sort of came together in this story. And um, so it's kind of set in the early 60s. And I just started imagining what it would be like if I was the middle child, but if I had been the oldest female child of the family and the father was not there in a blue collar family, how would we have survived? And so this story started developing based on, kind of, I consider myself pretty, what do they call it? Spunky. That's what they called me in the police
Spunky.
force. They call me Spunky. And so I said, well, I would probably go get a job someplace and support my family. I would make sure that they had bread on the table. And so this character started forming where she realized she couldn't get a job to do that. And she was a guy. And else she presented herself as a male.
Ah.
So
Interesting.
that was very interesting to write that story about how she managed to do what she did. And then, the eventuality of being caught, right? So,
Pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah. You have another short story, Bitter Love, that kind of caught my eye. It takes place in Dunwoody. What was the inspiration on that?
Oh gosh. Wow, you've done your research.
I try to do my homework. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, I'm a member of the Monroe Writers Group, or was for a really long time. And the lady wanted to do a cozy anthology. And I said, well, I'll try. I'll try. I don't really write cozies, but I'll try. Well, if you recall reading that story, one of the first scenes is she's at a triple homicide, right? So,
Not unusual in Dunwoody or in the metro area.
so the lady who was doing the anthology said, Lynn, I can't put this in a cozy. This is not, in a cozy anthology. I said, well, okay, fine. But, I really, really tried to not put anything super graphic in there. But if you can't handle it, that's okay. I'll send it someplace else, But anyway, it came about because she asked me to write this story, and I really was trying to make it well. And my mother-in-law was a very difficult woman. Okay,
Yeah, what mother-in-law is, yeah. These
but I mean,
mother-in-laws.
she was, yeah. And
Pain.
so,
Big pain.
she never changed her mind about me. Okay, she never did. Okay, no matter how many years Dean and I were together. So, I think there was just a little snippet while she at one point, she and her husband lived with us because he had had a stroke, and they lived with us for a very long year. And
Oh
so,
my gosh. That's a crowded
and
house.
I remember coming home from work, from being a police officer, and kind of writing in my journal and thinking, well, I can't, don't judge me. Something about don't judge me, but I think I've just killed my mother-in-law. Something like that was
Yeah.
written in my journal. And it made me laugh. It made me feel better. So I thought, so that was part
What a
of that.
spark. Yeah.
That's part of the story.
So it sounded pretty exhausting coming home, dealing with that. Oh, cook me supper. Like they're
Yeah, yeah,
totally in.
yeah. In fact, that was one of the reasons I think they finally left. I I had a female dancer that was just a wonderful dancer, and she would come over, and I would push back the furniture, and we would dance in my choreograph in my living room. And so she was a big exec for some company, and she came from work and she had on her nice clothes and everything. And she went and changed, and anyway, I knew it was going to be 7:30 or 8 o'clock before she left. And I told them that, you know, and I said, you can either go in and fix yourself something, which of course they never did, or, you can go out and eat because it's going to be late. It's not going to be 6 o'clock on the table. Well, about 7, they came in and sat at the dining room table and just sat there and watched us, like, we're
Yeah.
waiting. Where's our plates? And
That's
so when she finally left, um, Bob said, well, if you're going to treat us like this, we'll just go home. And I was like, okay.
That's
I
the way it
did,
goes.
I did tell you that it was going to be late. So, but anyway, yeah, family are always fun. And there's always those things that, who knows who's holding the grudge from what happened in 1997, at the time that you got together and you said something you didn't even know you said that was wrong. So, or that hurt their feelings. So family's a trip, but yeah, we love them.
Yeah, we just got through Thanksgiving, so I mean, not that I have anybody over, but yeah, I know I've heard those stories where it can get a little complicated, especially in this day and age.
Yeah, yeah. And, with the political scene, I kind of, I would consider myself a moderate Democrat, but a lot of my people are not. And so, interesting negotiating, all of that. Yeah, I think that I've learned to listen and not come back with these rebuttals immediately.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I did some work with Braver Angels. I don't know if that you saw that.
I've seen that.
That was when I did performed with Mind the Gap. That was that was training me to listen because I actually wrote scripts with people who were far right. And
Yes.
so you really have to stretch yourself. You have to really listen and put that judgment thing in the corner. I'm not saying it goes away completely, but you try not to have that in the forefront when you are really trying to listen. You can't do that. And you do find common ground, but when you're with family, I think it's even more difficult.
Oh, it is. It is. I hear horrible stories, even with my own extended families and stuff like that. I hear some people aren't even talking because of, oh, you voted for X. Oh, you must be a hateful, selfish person. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, I've never seen anything that bad. I mean, it's become more and more of a circus as over the years as I've been in news and covering all this.
Yeah.
Wow, it just gets more and more wild. And this year, especially, the way that people have been talking, and a lot of segments have been done on how do you get along with your family, how to deal with it at Thanksgiving. It's
Uh-huh.
like, I've seen that before.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's yeah, it can be interesting. I was in a car driving to a birthday party. My daughter was driving, and so I thought she was Democrat, and she's not, or she didn't vote for Democrat this time, I guess, based on her comments. So
Oh, wow.
it was a very long ride because I was trying to not say, and not, and then of course I was emotionally kind of like, oh God, you know,
Yeah.
so I was trying to regroup, but yeah, you just have to, she's a grown adult, way past grown, and she can make her own
Yeah.
decisions. And she knows that I worked for the Dems in the cab, and she knows I have signs in my yard, and you know, it's not a secret where I stand. So there wasn't any reason for me to start preaching, right? So
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of interesting as you have an adult child and
yeah,
they form their own ideas and opinions, and I'm always blown away by that. I have a 26-year-old, and it's like, wow, this is my little baby. I delivered you. It's like in you got these ideas and thoughts about current events. It's just really fascinating.
yeah. And you know, I feel like I showed her a strong woman growing up, and she knows that I'm very pro women empowerment. And
Yeah, yeah.
so when something happens, I mean, I think she's more and more as she matures. I think she gets it more and more.
Yeah, yeah.
But when she was in her early 20s, she was just like, I don't understand why you think you've got to stand up for women. You know, everything's fine. You know, everything's good. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll talk in a few years. You know, when you've
Yeah.
worked your butt off and you can't get promoted, we'll see.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, you've been there. You've been there in male dominated areas, and you remember the 50s and 60s, and it's like you don't even get that. It's like you don't understand what that fight was to get to this point. And
yeah.
yeah, very misogynistic, especially in those areas in law enforcement way back when even. That
Well,
had to be tough.
oh yeah. In the 80s, there was a I'm doing I'm doing a little bit of mentoring and collecting, helping the retirees, the females from DeKalb County in public safety. And so I've just kind of started that process the next couple of months. And so, you know, it's just interesting how even if you were you know, say you were a 911 operator, or you worked in, you know, you were the first Black female supervisor in radio, or you know, and we were so separated, we were so like isolated from each other, and there was very few female officers, and so you worked by yourself. You know, you didn't have there was no female sergeants or anything like that, so you were working by yourself. They made sure you were in different precincts, and
Mm.
you just never saw another female. So if the guys decided that they weren't going to back you on a call or
Wow.
calls, that's just where you were, you know. And my first DUI was like that, where I knew, hadn't been out there too long, maybe 6 months, and I had I pulled my first DUI, and then I was working morning watch, which is the 11 to 7 in the morning shift. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I pulled this guy over, and I know nobody's coming,
Oh
you know.
gosh, scary.
And
Actually, yeah.
I, I mean, he's all over the road, you know. It's real dark and everything, and I get him to the back, and I'm patting him down, and I get one handcuff on him, and he bucks up on me and starts fighting. I get
Oh
him in
gosh.
the back seat, but I cannot get that other handcuff on.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I just
That had
can't.
to be.
And I'm just, you know, I'm praying.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna get that
Oh my
handcuff
gosh.
on. You know, so it's all
Yeah.
elbows and knees and
Once you
stuff.
can get that in, yeah,
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 then you're okay.
yeah. And so, and there's no lights. I'm in a convenience store parking lot, and there's no lights. It's just a dark street. And I don't hear a car, I don't see any lights, but I hear this voice go, "May I help you, officer?" And this hand comes over and just holds down the hand. I go click, click, and I turn around, and there's nobody there.
Oh my gosh. Huh. Some
Nobody. So
something
that's
that,
one of my angel stories. As far as I'm concerned, that was an angel.
there was an angel. Yeah, yeah.
I
It
have
was
a
somebody who
couple
just helped and
photos,
ran
but
away.
uh, yeah, where I was like, okay, okay, well, that's where my help came from today.
Yeah, that would have been solved if you had the body cameras back then. You could have
Oh,
seen who came and
yeah,
helped.
I mean, nobody there. But well, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean,
That's wild. Yeah. Oh
it's
my
pretty wild.
gosh.
And
It's scary. It really is. I mean, nobody really understands the other side of this. It's like, of course you have to be confident, bold as a law officer. And, nobody really understands what's going through that person's mind, how tough and scary that could be.
Yeah, I mean, you just, you have to do it. And I had very few fights during my 25 years. I mean, probably six, what you'd call real fights. And they were uh, mostly because the other officer that showed up to back me said the wrong thing.
Uh, yeah, they're taking out their frustrations and it's getting the best of them.
You
Yeah,
really
we've seen
have,
that a lot.
that can get you into more trouble. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so, yeah, but they really need to be trained in wrestling and not boxing. We did some like fight day at the end of the, academy, and they used that to scare you the whole time that you're going to get knocked out and all that stuff. And of course, I'd never boxed, right? And I've
Oh,
never,
yeah, yeah.
wrestling would have been much
Right.
better because I did take, there was hand to hand and stuff like that too. But yeah, I definitely think that would be good training. But they also need to train based on, and I know I'm biased, but based on the female strengths of negotiation, um, interpersonal skills. Like I said, if I can,
Totally.
I mean, I worked the high crime area in DeKalb County for
Sure.
most of my career.
Hmm.
And I did not, because I treated people with respect. Yeah, you got to be ready if they got a gun. Yeah, I'm not saying you don't have to be trained to fight and do what you got to do. What I'm saying is you don't have to get there sometimes if you just keep your mouth in
Yeah, yeah.
respectful
It's that
mode.
communication at the beginning.
you know,
Yeah.
and for instance, I got a warrant and I'm going in, and the guy's got three kids on the couch. Well, would you like your wife to take your kids in the back room
Yeah, yeah. Things like that. It's a
before I have
tricky
to put them in
situation.
handcuffs? And, big guys, I've taken big guys in who, willingly went because I treated them with respect.
Yeah. That's gonna be
And
really
there's
tough.
always people that no matter what you say, they're going to fight you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
because they're already riled up. I've
they're
seen it
not going to
happen.
listen and they are going to, but that just happens really rare. So, if
Part of
you,
that job. Yeah. So, one of your latest works, this is an interesting one, an android against authoritarianism. And you're thinking about the future on this one.
I know. Well, I have a grandson that's 20 and
Cool.
at North Georgia College, and he was in junior high school, I believe, and he gave me the idea. Uh, Grandma, why don't you write a private detective, story about a grandmother in the future with a well, he used a robot grandson or something. Well, that's interesting, and I'm probably writing I'm probably writing the suspense novel about that time.
Mm,
So I make a few notes, and I foolishly thought that we could maybe start it together. Maybe he would want to do this because this was COVID, time of COVID. He was out of school. I thought maybe he'll want to help write, maybe that'll keep him engaged and we can do a project together and I can get
neat.
closer to him. It's all selfish
Yeah.
part, really. Well, and he's like, no, I'm good. I gave you the idea. I'm good. So he never helped me with anything, but he did give me the idea for it. So that's where that came from. And
Yeah. What a neat story
so
about a
much fun,
grandmother. Yeah.
so much fun making up this whole world. Did a little research, but if I wanted to make something a certain way, it's in the future. Hey, you know.
Yeah,
So
and it's not too far off. I think by 2049 we could maybe see those flying cars. Yeah,
yeah,
and
of
just
course, of course. And some of my little, of course, there's always something of yourself put in there, and the fear of aging and uh, having to deal with doctors and medications and so forth. Fortunately, I'm really healthy, and I'm
Mm,
not dealing with that yet. But you know, I think that's where the governmental controlled medication thing came from. In the story was, if the government was supervising everything like that, and if you didn't do what you were told, then you end up in the home.
yeah.
that would be very scary for me. So I think that, some of that comes out in the story too.
Yeah, I could see that happening and getting that idea from COVID, the way that we were dealing with mandates and all the brouhaha and the politics behind that.
Yeah.
Never seen that before. I never even thought I'd see something like that happening. That was very Orwellian in a lot of ways.
Wasn't it?
Amazing. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I loved the fact though that I was able to start working from home. But I still went to the office 2 weeks at a time, and I would work from home 2 weeks at a time. But I traveled. My daughter was just living in Boston at that time, and it was great to fly. I almost had the whole plane to myself. I was like, this isn't so bad. But yeah, what a weird time.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember going up to Massachusetts and I was so scared, like, are they gonna let me off the plane? I felt like I kind of had a little anxiety. Like I have all my papers in order in case they need to check if I've, been, I don't think we had the vaccines yet, but like I had to prove that I didn't have COVID or something. I thought I had all this proof I needed to have. I go into Logan, I pretty much have that airport to myself. And I was like ready to show the guard all my stuff. And she's like, I'll move along. I was like, wow, what a time though. I mean, really, when you had the whole plan to yourself, I mean, nobody was in the way. It was great, actually, when it came to that.
Yeah, well, you were brave to do that. I think there was a couple of things that I had planned to do during that time, and I didn't go. I remember canceling whatever it was because I just didn't. I'm not crazy about flying. I'm not afraid to fly. I just don't. I think it's more the closed off environment that I don't like.
Yeah, it's just going through all the security, especially Atlanta, which is one of the busiest airports in the world. That's not really fun to have to deal with that. Take your shoes off. Now you got to take this off. You got to take belts off. You got to put this on the conveyor and move along. And it's like there are people who are slow in front of you, and there's all that hassle to go along with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't mind doing MARTA, but a MARTA train, fine. I know it's going to get me there.
Yeah, Atlanta is bless as the Southern people say, bless their hearts. Uh, it seems to be the worst airport I've ever been in. We went to New York, and LaGuardia was a breeze compared to
Yeah.
Atlanta. Expected it to be crazy. It was nothing. It was,
I know. It's because we're a hub and they're not like big, big markets. The next one is like Dallas, and that's so far from here.
I guess, I guess.
Yeah. Because,
I don't
you
know.
think New York, I'm like, but they have two airports. We could use another airport here, but that's never going to happen.
No, no. Well, dear Atlanta,
Yeah.
we
Boy,
have
it's
to
really changed.
eventually, if we could grow it. I mean, we're just, oof.
Yeah. It keeps going out and out and out, and there's no barrier to stop Atlanta from growing like you do in Los Angeles. You got mountains, you got the ocean. Here, it's like we could go all the way to the ocean if we wanted. We could go back. We could, expand all the way to the North Georgia mountains if we wanted to. Nothing's really stopping all this growth. It's just phenomenal. I just, remember for those here in Atlanta, there was the population clock in front of the old Darlington hotel there, in the hotel, it's apartments there on Peachtree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like I remember that it was just climbing, 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 and then that sign ended up burning out anyway.
He probably has pictures of that. He was a paramedic at Grady before he came to DeKalb. And yeah, he has so many cool pictures of the old Atlanta, the around that time. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. Well, thanks for stopping by. I really enjoy speaking with authors like you. It's just always fun and it's just different. I talk to a lot of musical artists most of the time, but I'm not just limited to that. I really enjoy hearing about the process of how people get inspired to write books and your story is fantastic, the way you were able to reinvent yourself.
Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me. I do have a book signing at the Vintage Pizzeria December the 3rd. So I'll invite you to that. Maybe somebody listening can come. And it's on Shamley Dunwoody Road, 5502 Shamley Dunwoody Road in Dunwoody. So 7 to about 8:30. Come and have some pizza.
Vintage. I've heard it. Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Well, take care. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Wasn't that amazing? I really enjoyed that. And I'm so glad that you've clicked me on. Go onto that Apple podcast. I never ask anybody to do that. I don't even know where you would go. And I'm not trying to be completely ignorant on that, but on Apple Podcasts, I think you could give how many stars or whatnot to this podcast and many others. So give it all the stars you can, or maybe you might not want to, who knows. We're also available on all kinds of other platforms, so I always go out there and try to promote that as well. So really, have a good one, and I will have another one out in a week as I speak from now. Once this gets into the time capsule, this won't make a big deal, but anyway, enjoy. Have a great rest of December 2024, and as of this moment, we'll have another episode out next week. Thank you.